Welcome back to Discovering Geometry with Mrs. Berry. This is lesson 48. This is our algebra review. We have previously looked at how to find the circumcenter of a triangle, knowing the coordinates of its vertices. This lesson will look at how to find the orthocenter and the centroid when you know the coordinates of the vertices of a triangle. When we're finding the orthocenter, we will need to find the altitude of the triangle. That is the line that is perpendicular to the base and passes through the opposite vertex. Do you know how we will start to find that line? First, we'll have to find the slope for the base. Then, we will use that slope to find the line that's perpendicular to the base. Last, we will find the equation of that line with the perpendicular slope passing through the opposite vertex. After finding the equation of one altitude, you will need the equation for a second altitude. You'll turn the triangle or switch the side that you use as the base, and then you'll find the intersection point of those two lines. For this first example, we want to find the orthocenter of triangle ABC, where A is at 0, 2, B is at 12, 2, and C is at 4, negative 6. So here's the triangle that we're trying to find the orthocenter. Remember, the orthocenter is where the altitudes intersect. So to find the altitude of AB, I first need the slope of AB. And that is going to be 0 because it's a horizontal line. That means it's a y equals something. The perpendicular to AB would be an undefined slope, or where x equals something. So we know that it's going to be a vertical line. If it's a vertical line, it's x equals something, and in this case, we want it to go through C. So it will be x equals 4. So the equation of this altitude was quite easy because it was a vertical line. Now I'm going to do BC. So I want the slope of BC. Our slope is our change of y's over our change of x's. Our change means the difference. So I can just start with one point, negative 6, and I'm going to subtract 2. That's our change of y. And then our change in x's, I'm going to start with the 4 because that's with the negative 6, same point. 4 minus 12. So my slope here is negative 8 over negative 8. So it's a slope of 1. So for the line that's perpendicular to this, I want it to be the negative reciprocal of 1. Well, 1 as a fraction is 1 over 1, so flipping that fraction is still just 1 over 1, but the negative of it. So our slope for our altitude is going to be negative 1. And I want it to go through the opposite vertex, so I want it to go through A. So we have our slope and we have 1 point. We can say that y equals mx plus b. We can plug in the point that we have here for our x and y, and we already have our slope. If we put 3 of the numbers into this 4-part equation, then we can solve for that last one. So again, this is our x, this is our y, so I'm going to put in 2 for y. Our slope right here was negative 1. X is 0 plus b. Well, 0 times negative 1 is 0, so we'll just have b on this side is equal to 2. That made this one fairly easy. So our final equation for this line is y equals negative 1 times x plus 2. So remember, this was our first altitude equation. This was our second altitude equation. We're going to go to the next page and solve for the intersection point between those two altitudes. So again, we had x equals 4, and we had y equals negative x plus 2. I'm going to put these two together so I can substitute the x is equal to 4 into this equation. Y is equal to negative 4 plus 2. So y is equal to negative 2. So our point is at 4, negative 2. our point of intersection, which would be our orthocenter. Now we're going to look at finding the centroid. So for the centroid, we need to get the equations for the medians instead of the altitudes, and then we will find where the medians intersect. So we have this triangle DEF. D is at point 2,4. E is at 14, -2. And F is at 2, -8. So here is our triangle. Oh, my dot disappeared. Okay, so again, this was D, E, and F. We're going to start with the midpoint of DE. So how do we find the midpoint, the point in the middle of this line? Well, we're just going to take the average of the x value and an average of the y value, and that will give us what's right in between. So for D and E, taking the average of the x and the y values. So our x would be 2 and 14 added together and divided by 2. That's our average. Our y would be 4 minus 2, or 4 plus a -2, over 2, our average value there. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. 4 minus 2 is 2 over 2, which is 1. So that is one of our points that we're looking for. So 8, 1. My line is not quite straight, but it should be about right there. And then the other point for this median line to go through is going to be F. So here's one of our points, and here's the other one. So we're now using these 2 points to find the equation of a line. So how do we find the equation of a line when we have 2 points? First, we find the slope. So the slope is our change in y's over our change in x's. So change is the difference between. I'm going to take this one first, -8, and I'm going to subtract 1. I'm going to put that over the 2 minus 8 for our x's. I have -9 over -6. 2 negatives will make the whole fraction positive, and it's 3 over 2. Now I am going to do y equals mx plus b. I have my m, and I can use either point for my x and my y. So I'm just going to choose to use the positive one, so I'll choose this as my x and my y. I put in all of those and solve for b. So 1 is equal to 3/2 times 8 plus b. 3/2 times 8, well, 8 divided by 2, I can reduce that to just 4. 4 times 3 is 12, plus b is equal to 1. I'm going to subtract the 12, and I will have that b is equal to -11. So the equation for this line, this median, will be y equals 3/2 is our slope, x minus 11. So that's one of our medians. I'm going to go to the next page and find another median. We're going to find the midpoint of EF. So again, when finding the midpoint, we're just taking the average between E and F. So we'll do 14 plus 2 over 2, and we'll do -2 minus 8 over 2. And these are our points, our x and our y's. So 16 over 2 is 8, and -2 and -8 is -10 over 2 is -5. So 8, -5, and then our last point will be D, the point that we didn't use for our line. So between this midpoint and D is where we want to find the equation of the line. We're going to start by finding our slope. We're going to subtract our y's, so 4 minus a -5 We're going to subtract our x's. 2 minus 8. 4 minus a negative 5 will be a plus 5, so that's 9. 2 minus 8 is a negative 6. So I have a negative 3/2 for this slope. And then I will do y equals mx plus b. I have my slope. I can choose an x and a y based on either of these points. I'm going to choose this one. It just seems a little simpler. 2, 4 for my x, y. So I put in 4 for y is equal to my slope, negative 3/2 times 2 plus b. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this will be negative 3 plus b is equal to 4. I'm going to add my 3 on both sides. 7 is equal to b. Now I plug it into right here. My equation for this median is y equals slope of negative 3/2 x plus 7. Okay, so I have two medians now. The last thing I'm going to do is solve those to find the intersection point between the two medians. So my first one was y equals 3/2 x minus 11. My second one was y equals negative 3/2 x plus 7. And you can solve these however you'd like. It would work for substitution if you want to just set the 3/2 x minus 11 equal to negative 3/2 x plus 7. It would also work very well for elimination or that addition of equations. So if I just add these equations together, I will have 2y, the positive 3/2 x and the negative 3/2 x would equal 0. That's what we want. We want to eliminate one of the variables. And then 7 minus 11 will be a negative 4. If I divide by 2, then I get that y is equal to negative 2. So that was very fast, solving it with elimination. Once I have a y, I choose either equation to plug it into. I'm just going to choose this top one. Negative 2 is equal to 3/2 x minus 11. I'll add 11 to both sides. I get 9 is equal to 3/2 times x. To get rid of the 3/2 or to undo it, I'm going to multiply by 2/3. When I have a fraction and multiply it by its reciprocal, it will equal 1. If I do it on one side of the equation, I have to do it on the other side. So over here, the 3/2 and the 2/3 equal 1. So now I have 1x left. 9 times 2 over 3. So I could cancel here, or I reduce, or I could just say 2 times 9 is 18, divided by 3 is 6. So I have my x and my y for the intersection between these two medians. So the centroid, or where the medians intersect, is going to be at the point 6, negative 2.